ARTIFY was kind enough to reach out to me and ask if I could do a review of their alcohol brush markers. Of course, I said yes, but only on the condition that I get to say what I need to about the markers. They actually welcomed that and said that they wanted the feedback as well, so they can improve as much as they can, and I thought that that was awesome of them to say. So hi everyone, I'm Ward and welcome to my channel Wardrawsalot, and this week we're going to do a review of these ARTIFY brush markers. First, let's talk about the packaging. It came really well in the box, and it was wrapped in bubble wrap, so it felt really secure when I opened it up. The marker case itself is a black marker case all around with the word ARTIFY in the front, has a handle so you could take it to go, and has clasps in the front so this way you could lock the markers in. Once you open up the marker case, inside is a card that says ARTIFY Brush and Chisel Art Marker 80, and it's actually a swatch sheet for all of the colors. This is something that I always appreciate very much that they provide. On the back of the card, it says, their official website, the Amazon store link, and it even has like a join ARTIFY and win the lottery, 5% to 40% off, so that might be a little fun thing that they do on their ARTIFY art website. And finally, the main character of it all, the markers inside the case. Now that we've looked at the markers as a whole, let's take a look at an individual marker itself. From immediate first glance, we could tell that the barrel is white. It also has written on it ARTIFY, and has an indicator on both sides for the brush end, which also has a gray streak, and the broad end, which doesn't have a gray streak, so you could differentiate the two. Now, I don't do a good job of showing it here, but the barrel is actually kind of triangular, so it holds in the hand pretty well. Let's take a look at the nibs. Chisel nib first, because I actually love the chisel nib. It's nice and fat, very chunky. I love big chisel nibs because they can get a lot of the area without having to sacrifice more of the brush tip, which is on this side. The tip does definitely remind me of the Ohuhu tips, which are very good quality, so I expect these are going to be very good quality as well, at least for the price range of these kinds of markers. Also, each marker on top, as you could tell, comes with the color and the number of the color, so you can look at it from the top and then just pick which one you want to use. Now, as you could tell, the marker case is definitely unorganized, which is the case with every marker brand. So what I did is actually follow the numerical system on the swatch sheet and organized as I went along swatching these colors. Now, always swatch whatever art supply you get, and the reason being is that you don't know how your colors are going to look like from the marker cap to actually putting it on paper. It might look completely different, so the best thing to possibly do is swatch your colors down so you always have some kind of reference to go by. And this honestly can be said with any art supply, not just markers, but I noticed that this does happen often with markers, and it's honestly better safe than sorry. You don't want to take out a marker you think looks like a certain color, use it, and then it looks completely different, and then your art piece has to go in a completely different direction. So that's just saving you the time and the pain of not having that swatch already done. As you can tell here from my swatches, I can't color in the lines. Sorry to tell you all. I can't even color within the lines in my own art. But besides that point, as I was swatching these colors, I noticed that there was a really nice range of some of the lighter ones and darker ones in each category of colors. Like the red section had some really nice light pinks, so did the blues, the purples. I felt like I could really get some nice transitions with these tones, and I honestly liked the kind of value that I got going on over here. Now you can see from the swatch sheet, G025 is empty, and I looked everywhere for that marker. I checked all the piles, I checked whatever was left in the bin, and I couldn't find the marker. And I thought that like, maybe I lost it, I dropped it, something. As I continued coloring, I noticed something. It was that I had two WG06 markers, and I was like, okay, that's why I don't have a G025. They accidentally gave me two of the same marker. That's fine with me because, I didn't pay for this set. But if you were to pay for this set and you had two of the same marker, that would kind of suck. But I'm guessing that if that actually happened in your case, you could email them and tell them like, hey, I got double the marker. Is it possible you could send me the one I'm missing? I'm guaranteeing they would actually go ahead and send it. I doubt they'd be, mad grimy about it. So if anything, if that happens to you, just, I guess, email them and see what they say. For my case, I don't have that marker, but I'm fine with it because they gave it to me, but this is my honest review, and, that marker wasn't there. So there's that note. I went ahead and organized the markers, and honestly it was a little bit of a struggle because they kept knocking and bumping into each other and then kind of being misplaced. So I'm guessing one thing that could make the marker cases a little bit better is having those plastic risers at the bottom to where you could stick the markers in, just so they don't keep flopping around everywhere and mixing their proper place. But if it keeps the cost down from, buying the pack, then it's whatever I would do without it. But it honestly depends on a person-to-person basis. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention the price of these markers. On Amazon right now, the 80 pack of brush markers goes for $50, so $50 for 80 markers, that's 62 cents a marker. If you do have like a coupon like I do that says $8 off, it goes from 50 to 42, so instead of getting it for 62 cents a marker, you could possibly get it for about 53 cents a marker. So I think that that's a fantastic deal for a large set of markers like this that feel like pretty good quality and honestly so far look like they would actually do the job pretty well. Now, of course, I want to check how these markers actually blend. I took 3 different yellows, in this case it was a light yellow, medium yellow, and a yellow green, and blended them together to see how well they would fare on Neenah cardstock paper, which, by the way, I use for everything when it comes to swatching, or nearly everything when it comes to swatching markers. It is not too premium and not too poopy of a paper, so it's like a nice medium ground to see how anything blends on it. I highly suggest using it for anybody who wants good cheap marker paper that comes in a large pack. Now, for those who use the alcohol like blender marker, I've noticed that it was a little dry upon using, and I wanted to test that for swatching because, some people actually do use the alcohol blender, and it honestly did a nice job here. I noticed that the ink blended very well and it was a very smooth transition, so using the alcohol, ink marker is always like a nice little tool so you could save on ink. And just to show you, I did go ahead and do the same exact swatch right next to it with the same colors, but without the blender underneath it, and honestly I feel like it did make the slightest difference just because the surface wasn't prepped to be blended on, so as a result I did have to layer more, which means that I had to use more ink in the end, so it's honestly a person-to-person basis here. Now, when it came to the swatches, I felt like they blended out pretty well. The yellow part, of course, it's going to be a little difficult transitioning from a yellow to green, so I expect that with any marker, not just here. All the other colors blended beautifully, but at the end of the day, it's how they actually perform in a official drawing. Here is my sketchbook where most of my artwork goes into, and honestly where I use my markers the most anyway. So this drawing took about a good hour and a half to 2 hours with these markers, and I formed some good points and some needs improvement points, you could say, about these markers. The reason why I say needs improvement instead of bad is because they're asking for feedback, and being harsh when somebody's asking for feedback isn't fair. So the reason why I say that is because if they're trying to improve their product, then I believe that if I'm giving feedback properly, one should kind of be respectful of that feedback, you know what I'm saying? So let's start off with the good points of these markers, because despite a few things, I actually really enjoyed using them and working with them. First off, the color range. I actually enjoy the color range. Within each set of colors, I'd like to say there's about 10 of them. So like 10 yellows, 10 oranges, 10 reds, and it keeps going down, except the grays. The grays are kind of sectioned off into cool grays, warm grays, etc. But I think that they have a nice amount of each marker, and on top of that have a nice range from light to dark of the colors. I think there's also a nice amount of skin tones in there, from pretty light to pretty dark, which is very nice because usually I feel like there's trouble when it comes to having a nice skin tone variation. The quality of the marker ink is also very nice in my opinion. Sometimes when you get those like really cheapo markers, the marker ink isn't very good, and it bleeds a lot, or it has like practically no pigment, but these markers have pretty good pigment. The quality itself is nice, and again, they blend very well together, which I appreciate a lot. And honestly, again, I had a pretty good time using these markers overall, even though that there were some little in-betweens that could be fixed, which I'll explain in a second too. The brush nibs are pretty good quality. They're pretty spongy, so they're very flexible when you use them. The only problem is I'm somebody who beats up the markers pretty badly, like me personally. I'm very rough with my art supplies, so by the end of using the color black, the nib was practically, you know, it was worn out by the time I got to it. So the nibs may need a little bit of tweaking, or if it's going to keep the cost down but you still get a lot of those nibs, then again, that's fine with me. It's a person-to-person basis. Now, we've talked about the good, let's talk about what needs improvement. Let's start with the marker case, for example. Having little plastic inserts at the bottom to keep all of the markers in place would be pretty useful, especially because, you know, some people really do like to keep their stuff organized. Me, I'm very 50-50. If it's something I'm going to use often, I'd like it to be organized so this way I know where everything is in place and I could just grab and go. But if it's something that I'm not using that often, then the organization doesn't matter to me. However, regardless, it would still be nice to have that organization in place, just so it's, you know, ease of access to a lot of people. Now, the thing about the markers is super important though. So when I was using the markers, I noticed that there was definitely a difference when it came to some markers versus the other, and that was how much ink was in the physical marker. Some of them were really juicy and had enough ink and it felt like I could use them forever. Some of them were kind of teetering on a little dry, which isn't that great if, you know, you buy the entire pack and you're expecting to use these colors for a while and the markers are a little dry. I don't know if you can email ARTIFY and tell them like, hey, this marker was a little dry upon buying it. Is there any way you could replace it? I don't know about that part, but if ARTIFY is watching this video and they're wondering what they can improve, then I would say make sure there is a little bit more ink in these markers, just because you don't want too many complaints from people saying that there's practically no ink, especially when it comes to alcohol markers, which are going to get used a lot, especially by the demographic that we're going to be hitting, which is probably people within the teenage to 20s range, where a lot of them like to use these markers for cartoons, anime, or just ease of access drawing. So ink is definitely always something that you should put forefront when it comes to making markers, as much as you can put into them without obviously overextending your budget and without going into too high of a cost for the consumer as well, right? That really was just my main gripe, was that. And to be honest, I don't think that it was too bad of an issue because, again, I did get these really nice blends with these markers. The ink quality itself was great, so I didn't have to sit there and wonder why there's no pigment or why it looks a certain way. The colors are super vibrant, they're beautiful, I like them a lot. I feel like this is a very if I could say a very Ward pack, because these colors are definitely something that I gravitate towards and would love to use constantly, and honestly I would probably use these markers even outside of this video if I'm thinking for the future of it all. These are markers that I would definitely pick up again because they just felt so nice to use. Now, with everything stated, it's obviously a person-to-person basis. Would they buy them? Would they not? I'm thinking of it myself. If I watched a review like this and I heard the talking points that I did, would I want to buy these markers anyway? Me personally, yes. Because I'm somebody who, regardless of any review, will buy something and try it out for myself to see how it goes. However, that's not the case for everybody. Some people will hear these talking points and be like, oh, maybe I should or should not get them as a result. If it was me and I was watching this review from a third-person perspective, regardless, like I said before, I would buy it just to try it out. Would I be disappointed with the markers? I don't think so, because like I said now, using them, I had a good time using them, the quality was good, and it felt just like an overall nice experience. I definitely do hope that ARTIFY, takes these talking points into account and works on what they want to. Again, it was really nice of them for them to let me talk how I want to on these markers, and them wanting my feedback is awesome. Not every company does that, guys. Honestly, a lot of companies are pretty like strict with how they want you to talk about their products, and to see that ARTIFY is so willing to let me speak on it and they want my feedback means that they honestly want to do this for the cause of wanting artists to feel good with their art supplies. So I really appreciate that from them, and overall I really did like these markers, and I hope that they continue to get better because I feel like they definitely deserve that. So yeah, everybody, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.